What up, guys? So let's talk tax. Today was a pretty damn terrible day for orders. I was just waiting around, and in the end I thought, sod this, let's go home. And I got home and I thought, come on, let's be productive, let's do something. Let's pay my tax. So it took me longer than it should because, to be honest, I didn't start calculating how much I'd earned and how much I spent until after I actually started it. So one bit of advice is to get all of your figures in front of you, how much money you made, your income that you made from Deliveroo, self-employed, for the pay period, the tax year 17-18, how much you paid out, as in things like equipment and stuff like that, which comes off your profit, the receipts, so you're not accidentally saying that you've bought things that you haven't bought, because that could backfire on you eventually. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. I assume everybody who's going to pay tax has registered to be self-employed, because the deadline was the 5th of October 2008 for the 2017-2018 tax year. When I say 17-18, the tax years run from April to April. So the tax year that you will be paying now is 17-18, so that's the 6th of April 2017 to the 5th of April 2018, so the previous April gone. If you didn't start working until after the 6th of April 2018, then don't worry about it. You don't have to pay tax until this tax year would be the 18-19 tax year, which doesn't end until April. So you don't need to well, I think HMRC says you do have to register, but I think technically you don't have to register until the deadline, which will probably be the 5th of October 2019. Sorry if this is complicated. So I've made a few helpful videos, clips of my self-assessment for my tax return. It might be helpful, it might just confuse you, I don't know. Some of my personal information is in there, but it's just numbers, nothing which I'm particularly concerned about showing. If you're going to say, oh my god, you didn't make much money from Deliveroo, bearing in mind I was only in the country for, I think, 6 months of the previous tax year. So if you think about it like that, it doesn't look too bad, if you're honest. So just to go through a couple of the deadlines before we move on to the help videos. So nobody does paper returns, but if you're going to do a paper return, then you've missed the deadline. Just do it online. The deadline for doing your self-assessment online is the 31st of January 2019, and I think that's also the deadline to pay it as well. And of course that, again, I say again, is for the tax year 2017-2018. So this is for money that you have received for your, well, I think it's for everything, but that's another confusing matter which doesn't really matter. Any money which you have received between the dates of the 6th of April 2017 and the 5th of April 2018. Any other money is received after that, it's not included in this, don't worry about it. Yes, so here's the video. Feel free to ask basic questions. I'm not an accountant, I'm not a solicitor. I have a little bit of experience with tax, but not much. Probably can't help you much with capital assets, although I think a capital asset is anything which you would typically keep for more than 2 years. So for instance, a bike tire isn't going to last you for 2 years, so that isn't a capital asset. That's just going to be tax deductible, so that will come off of your profit, which you will see later. I always forget to mention things, so if I have missed anything glaring, then don't hate me. Ask in the comments and I'll answer it. Hopefully some of these little clips help somebody. Yeah, so here's my self-assessment. Right, so I'm here with loads of receipts from the previous tax year. I'm already registered to be self-employed for tax year 2017-2018. I've just logged in via the government gateway, the post office, which I found was the easiest way to log into the self-assessment gateway. You have to do some you have to do some verification. You might have to upload some documents, blah, 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 but once you've done it, it's pretty easy to log back in. And now I'm going through the first bit. I'm just telling them what my income has come from and if I'm getting income from any other sources. And the first bit's really easy. You might have to Google a couple of things. Like, for instance, if you have student loans, you might have to just double check what type of student loan it is. Mine is Plan 1. So a lot of it is just yes/no questions. And then it moves on to the income. So I just thought I would share this bit. Before I ever did a self-assessment, I was really stressed and worried about it. I didn't know how difficult it would be, but actually once you get logged in, you can do it in just a couple of hours if you have all the information to hand. But I've probably been doing this for maybe 20 minutes so far, and as you can see there, we're up to number 3 so far. Let's see the bits that we've done already. So we've read the welcome bit. I've given them my confirmed my name, my address, my date of birth, my national insurance number. I confirmed that I've only got one self-employed income, or rather I've told them about my self-employed incomes, and now I'm up to here. So I'll give you a bit more information a bit later on, if I can, without revealing too much about my myself. So here we go. This is the beginning of probably the most important bit for us. I think most of us probably don't have any capital gains, any money from property, any pension, that type of things. I mean, some of us it will apply to. But most of us, it's just going to be no, 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 and then you get to fill in the actual return. So I'm at that stage now that I'm going to have to put figures in, and some of the figures are a little bit confusing, but if you read it, and sometimes you have to Google it if you get a bit confused, but it's relatively simple. But here's what you need beforehand. You need profit and loss accounts. That might sound complicated, but basically all that means is you need to know exactly how much money has gone into your bank, and you need a receipt for every outgoing which you want to deduct off of your profit. So your profit is what you're going to pay tax on, your deductions come off of your profit, and then you only pay tax on your profit. I don't know what that notices of coding is. I don't think that's really that important to us. Okay, right, let's get into it. Okay, so this might be the first helpful tip that I give, because I'm no tax expert and I don't pretend to be, but I know that doing your self-assessment is easier if you use the cash basis of doing your profit and loss. So basically, I think you just enter how much you brought in and how much went out, and you don't have to enter specifics. It's going to save you a lot of time. And the date of when your books or accounts are made up to would be the last day of the previous tax year, so the 5th of April 2018. Right, so once you enter in your income for that taxable year, and bearing in mind that I was only here for I think it was 6 months, because I was away in Thailand for 9 months. So once you've done that, you then have to move on to the expenses, and I'm going to enter mine as a total value for my expenses. But just bear in mind that you need a receipt for every expense you're going to deduct off of your income, just in case, in the unlikely event you're audited. Okay, so once you've entered in your income and your expenses, then you can enter values relating to the capital allowances, as in any money which you spent on capital allowance. And I think a capital, hang on, A capital investment is something which lasts more than 2 years. Anything which isn't a capital investment would come under your taxable deductions. So here we go. You can claim capital allowances on the purchases and improvements to equipment and machinery such as vehicles, tools, computers, business furniture used in your business. So we could probably do things like bikes, definitely cars if you have a car for your Deliverooing or a motorbike. However, I think for the majority of us, this isn't going to apply, especially as the easier way of doing this is a cash basis, and it says here that if you selected yes to the cash basis, you can only claim capital allowances on cars which are used in the business. Okay, well, I'm not entirely, like I say, I'm not an expert, but I think I'm just going to leave this all blank because the only capital, the capital asset I have, I suppose, is my phone, which I suppose I could make a deduction for, and my bike. I think that's about it, really. So, I mean, I'm just going to leave all this blank because I like to have an easy life, and I think that this is just going to overcomplicate things, and it's not necessary, especially when you're not dealing with massive values. So, if you were self-employed and you have more than one income stream, i.e., let's say, just for an example, you're a barrister and you also did Deliveroo on the side, then yes, this might come in handy. Or if you were a landlord and you had several properties, then this section would come in handy. But if you're just cycling for Deliveroo, whether it be part-time or full-time, I don't necessarily think this is going to apply unless you want to class your bike as a capital asset and your phone, and then you can get a deduction for depreciation. But this is just not something that I want to do, and I don't think it's going to be relevant to the majority of us. I'm not claiming to be an expert, and to be honest with you, if you are going to want to make a capital asset depreciation claim or put in a value for depreciation, then you probably know more about tax than me, so I don't know why you're watching this. Okay, so now we've got some summaries, and you're just asked to check it and then save and continue. And then I think what will happen is we'll move on to the tax payment and the national insurance payments. So that should be pretty much done. So here we go. It's calculated on Class 2 national insurance that I owe £148.20, which is for the £2.85 for each week of the tax year. Okay, so the last section was a little bit funny. It says, it asked me, do you want to pay voluntary national insurance class 2? And my profits were over the minimum anyway, so I hit yes because it wouldn't be voluntary anyway. Then it came up with an error and said, no, if you want to, because your profits are over, you have to say, no, you don't want to pay it voluntarily because you have to pay it anyway. So I was like, well, why did you ask me that question then? That's just pointless. Anyway, this next section is about previous years, underpayments, tax for early years, and mine is done correctly last year, so yes is no and no is yes, but I don't know. Okay, right, so with my type 2 and type 4 national insurance as well as my tax bill, my tax bill for the previous tax year is £833.85. So yeah, that's that. Got to pay it before, I think it's the well, where is it? There you go. I think it's the 31st. Your first payment is due by the 31st of January 2019. Job done. I think they check it or something and confirm that everything is legit, but that's pretty much done. So there you go. For the previous year, I think I paid 835 odd quid. Most of it was I think the most of it was the class 4 national insurance, and that is because everybody has an allowance that they don't pay tax on. I think it's I think it's about £11,000. So I only paid tax on a little bit of money, but I paid Class 4 national insurance on everything, and Class 2 national insurance as well. So Class 2 and Class 4 national insurance is the big one that I had to pay. Yeah, there you go. It's not the end of the world. I think it's better to be self-employed when it comes to the actual tax that you pay. I think you pay an ever so slightly lower percentage for whatever reason, I don't know. But of course, if you're doing PAYE, you're an employee, then you would pay the rate prorated, and then you would have to get a rebate, which is a pain in the arse. At least this way you don't have to mess around with that. But it does mean you need to keep some money in your bank, because not that many people have got 800 quid kicking about, which they can just pay willy-nilly. Although saying that, I didn't have to pay it until the 31st of January 2019, although I did pay it straight away just because I'll probably forget, to be honest. Anyway, questions below.